In Houston, I'm John Herder. Tuesday, the 8th day of March. Great as always to have you along, everybody. In a nutshell, From the Experts is a compressed virtual networking accelerator, helping people across industries connect very quickly in a brief, moderated, interactive show format, like a TED Talk with interactive discussion, 15-minute talk, 25-minute discussion. So what's in it for you? Well, the FTE promise, if all goes well, your curiosity is sparked, new ideas accelerate action, and you may have helped yourself or somebody else solve a problem, make a connection, reach the opportunity faster. Because we know making authentic connections and expanding your networks has never been more important to your business. Folks, help me welcome guest expert Diane Finkhausen, founder and CEO of Shoshin Works. Diane is a pioneer, entrepreneur, and global authority on platform-enabled ecosystems. She is known for her strategic work designing and deploying enterprise-scale ecosystems. Before Shoshin Works, Diane was GE's Global Director of Open Innovation and Advanced Manufacturing and founder of GE Genius Link and GE Fuse. When you connect, be sure and ask her about Platform Strategy Institute in Boston. Diane, your work seems to be right smack dab in the middle of this ongoing workforce evolution called the Great Resignation. You know, in our talks, you've used words like open innovation, digital economy, operating models, workforce ecosystems, platform economy, to kind of describe how you're working with management teams to help them adapt at speed to be competitive into the future. Super grateful you can be with us today, gain your perspective and why this actually matters to our businesses today. Diane?
Fantastic. Thanks, John. And thank you so much for the opportunity to join the conversation today. I'm really excited about the team and the discussion today. But yeah, John, to your point, it's a really exciting time to be in business. I think we all are seeing it, right? We're seeing the digital renaissance really unfold right in front of our eyes and beneath our feet, frankly. As we all know, the pace of change in markets is extraordinary. It's unprecedented in our lifetimes. And so there's a lot contributing to that. And a lot of very complex forces behind that momentum, but similarly, a lot that we can do in order to harness that momentum and really turn it into, I believe, a force for good for our businesses and for our teams. So with that said, as kind of the aspirational goal for the conversation today, I thought maybe we'd take a couple of steps back and I can share a little bit about my journey that might help explain a little bit about why I think we're all here. And I'm sure as I start to kind of share my story, you're probably going to see a lot of facets of your own stories, or I hope that you'll see a lot of facets of your own stories in the journey that I've been on. Goodness, as I see a lot of familiar faces dialing in, my journey is shared by a lot of the folks that are on the call here today. A lot of you have participated in my journey and my story. So just chime in here as we open up the mics. I'd love to have your perspectives too as we open up the conversation. But if we just kind of dial back a few years to about 2013, seems like a lifetime ago, really, but it was a time where I was still at GE. I just joined the corporate team at GE. I had spent about 24 years at GE. In 2013, I was asked to jump up to the corporate team because we were firing up our digital transformation. And for us at GE, that meant that we were rolling out the Internet of Things, IoT. And for us, that was a pretty healthy undertaking. It was a pretty massive lift. We were shifting from an industrial company, albeit a very mature, iconic, trusted organization in the industrial equipment space, we were beginning to undertake the effort to really censor up all of our equipment, to embed basically a voice in the industrial equipment so that we could start to harness and harvest big data, right? This concept of big data in industrial applications. And so we recognized that that was as much a change management journey for us as it was a product journey. So we established a team at corporate to begin to work with all of the business unit teams, aviation, healthcare, capital, et cetera, to evaluate what IoT would bring to the value that we could offer to the markets and the customers that we served. Again, we were sitting down with the teams, talking as much about market positioning strategy as product roadmaps. And a couple of months into that journey, it became very clear that to match pace with customer and market expectations of our digital transformation journey, we quickly needed to scramble more skills diversity and more agility within our own operations. So we had been exploring with a few open tools. We had started to experiment with open innovation. We had started to experiment with open talent, and we started to see the potential to unlock greater capacity, greater speed, greater pools of expertise if we would be able to determine a scalable, a compliant way to reach out to external experts in a much more efficient manner. So we decided to launch an operation at corporate. I pitched and launched an operation at corporate to assemble an operation to harness open talent, external talent marketplaces, open innovation, and also internal talent marketplaces or mobility. In short, we were able to begin to experiment with these models really because of the onset of platform business models that would allow us to bring a lot of experts online in a way that was much more accessible. We could organize resources, capacity, solution pathways using platform-enabled ecosystems that was much more agile than traditional kind of supply chain, linear supply chain models. So in short, we set up this operation at corporate. We ran it for about 6.5 years. We deployed it across the entire organization. The operation at its height reached out to over 30 platform-enabled marketplaces, which gave us reach to 21 million resources. And we were able to institutionalize governance models and operational models that could connect our teams and our operations and frankly our clients with an expert or a solution in a matter of moments or days. So it really revolutionized the way we thought about the design of work, our access to expertise and capacity, and our ability to redefine what was possible. In those 6.5 years that we operated that model at corporate, at GE, we had, as I mentioned, 36 partners, marketplace partners, 21 million collaborators in those networks. And we were able to drive about very close to $7 billion of impact for our organization and our clients. So we were able to really pressure test the scalability, the compliance, and the impact of open models, open innovation, open talent, and internal talent marketplaces, which are really just putting the resources of the world and of the organization on a platform access model. So fast forward to where we are today. In 2019, GE started to restructure their operations, pushing the center of gravity back into the business units. And I took the opportunity to exit the company and start my own consulting business. And so today, what we're focusing on is bringing those playbooks and those best practices to organizations that are undertaking their own digital transformation. So brilliant organizations, some of whom are joining us here today, who have a vision for a much more resilient, accelerated operational model that is ambivalent to the source of the talent or the solutions, and chooses with great precision to source the best possible talent and the best possible solutions, regardless of where that talent and those solutions may originate. So basically a source agnostic approach to executing organizational priorities, really, that is enabled by the onset of platform-enabled ecosystems. We hear these models referred to as marketplaces, talent marketplaces, innovation marketplaces. The lexicon is pretty diverse, but the results are the same. We're living in and through a digital renaissance period where talent is empowered, enlightened, and accessible. And organizations can and should be thinking about how to leverage platform-enabled models in order to reach solutions and talent with precision and speed.
Hey,
So
Diane?
I'll stop there. Yeah, John.
Just a real quick question on that. How do, these platform model ecosystems differ from the standard operating models with employees and vendors? Can you just critique that just a little bit?
Yeah, just very simply, John, great question. And it's a timeless question that has been, a lot of organizations have been grappling with for quite some time. But very simply, the models that we're talking about here, the ecosystem models, are those that are accessing talent, capacity, and solutions by digital means. And the connections are enabled through marketplaces, platform business models. Contrast that with traditional sourcing models where organizations historically have had very linear, structured, approved supply chains where there would be a fairly long and rigorous approach to approving new suppliers. And once those suppliers are on the list, then they're in good standing and accessible to the employee base. But it's a very sequential and regimented approach to sourcing resources. Conversely, in a platform model, it's very dynamic, and you have basically an API approach. You have protocols that allow you to access a multitude of entrepreneurs, inventors, potential suppliers, and they can reach others through your ecosystem as well. But it's more of a 360-degree view of the opportunity landscape, very dynamic and platform enabled. So hopefully that makes sense.
Sure.
So yeah, we're all undertaking the digital transformation in our own way and at our own pace. A lot of you have been on a similar journey, and I see we have a question. So I'll kind of wrap this up in a second. We'll go to the question, but the journey of digital transformation historically has focused rightly on the incredible unlock that is possible with the new technologies that are coming online. The way that we approach markets, create value, access solution pathways has been incredibly disruptive. However, we need to be mindful of the talent journey that accompanies that digital transformation, that technology unlock. We have the ability to reach collaborators, value creators in the arena of open talent, open innovation, open procurement, internal talent marketplaces, really because the platform economy has enabled a much more dynamic pathway to qualifying resources, qualifying solutions, and accessing those in a way that is much more accelerated than we could in traditional talent supply chains or vendor supply chains historically. We have a quick question. Let's go to the question. And
Yes.
Go ahead, Chris.
Thank you. Please call me Link. I'm a big fan of your work, Diane, and big fan of ecosystems overall. But when I think about the long-term impact of going the ecosystem direction and more companies sourcing remote work and remote talent, I think about the dynamics of we're seeing this flexibility is the biggest attraction to workers, that it provides them flexible work. Now we're moving from the 8 to 5 business day to managing a company 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because the ecosystems never sleep. Do you find that overall, I mean, is this the biggest pain point that companies are seeing when they're trying to manage their remote talent, and they're only working maybe 9 to 5, but their remote talent needs to work at 2 o'clock in the morning their time? How does this play out when it comes to managing that?
awesome question, Link. And yeah, you're exactly right. The you see this new kind of normalization of work, both on the talent side and on the organizational side. Both sides of that equation are sorting out what that new normal is. And the good news is that can be personalized for the organization and for the talent. But the potential, to your point, Link, is for this always on environment and potentially this always on expectation. So a new kind of standard of boundary setting is absolutely required, right? Asynchronous communications are really the new normal. But I think we're seeing some pretty interesting and successful playbooks for the new kind of digital always on experience. There are teams that are, and we did this back at GE as well, where we would set up workflows that would effectively follow the sun, where you would have teams stationed around the world that could synchronize handoffs of work, so that one team would work their normal span and then hand the outcomes off to the next team and off to the next team. And so that can be very successful. But each team, each organization needs to be very thoughtful and intentional about the way they design the boundaries and the expectations and the balance within that new ecosystem model. It's a great question. Yeah.
Leif Asheim back in Norway, he runs an IT company over there. He says he's curious if this platform fever is similar to what you're referring to in this ecosystem.
Yeah, great question. Platform fever has really unlocked these new business models and this new economic growth. As with any new technology, any new business model, any innovation, you have the potential for utopian outcomes and you have the potential for dystopian outcomes. And I know we've all seen, the range of possibilities there. And I know, just as an example, Aiden was on a previous FTE show and talking about the potential pros and cons of some of what we're seeing in the digital era as well. But very specifically, the platform economy has necessitated the emergence of ecosystem models where we have more dynamic access to a broader array of resources and solution pathways. The platform economy, it is not compatible with a traditional kind of post-industrial revolution business model. The traditional post-industrial revolution business model is very regimented, sequential, linear, and very frankly, over encumbered with outdated assumptions for the design of work and the possibilities for workforce design. I'm convinced that we will continue to see the remnants of that industrial revolution model, the linear business models, but more and more we're going to see platform-enabled ecosystems become the operational engine of the digital era.
And thanks for those comments. Today's show is brought to you by our underwriters, Unique Ventures, the energy hybrid technology accelerator with a unique approach to venture capital. Alliance Benefit Group, building retirement plans for your business at work. Interpoint, protecting what you care about most, people, profits, brand, and the environment. And Ecosystems 2030, the world's most transformational platform exploring tech ecosystems of the next decade. Learn more about that at es2030.com. Special welcome to our 2 FTE annual members that could join the show today. Paul Torsen, shipbroker with Bravo Group USA, and Tracy Williams, country manager of Songwon Industrial Group. Thanks, guys. So let's go ahead and open the floor back up to some more discussion. We have a general discussion question. Gus, if you go ahead and drop that in there. But folks, feel free to drop in your questions. Remember, give your name as you share your comments. And if you're called on by me, you can say pass and I'll move right on along. So here you go. Here's the group discussion. Based on what Diane's talked about in this platform, digital economy, where are you? Where's your business on this journey? From a standard model towards the digital operating model. What lessons learned do we have out there? What has worked? What is not working? And why? So anybody like to step forward and get us talking on their experience and share their experience in that area? If not, I'd like to see, Chris, would you mind sharing your perspective, or Life, or even Aiden, if one of you guys would like to step forward and share what's been going on in your part of this?
Sorry, yeah.
You go. No, go for you first. You first, no problem.
I think that I work for Promineo, and we offer a project staffing solution for basically trying to help project-centric organizations manage their staff and the people. And obviously, most of our customers, Diane, they are extremely linear, and they are in this model that you are describing with the post-industrial model, where they are very linear, and that is how they operate. And we've been trying to work with them to sort of switch that to basically, to be very concrete, trying to help them move from having a manager decide who goes on to the next project into which position, to switch to a marketplace where people themselves can choose which positions fits them, and to a much larger degree manage their own time. And I keep trying to make the argument that when you hire people with PhDs and masters, it wouldn't be surprising if they are, to some extent at least, able to manage themselves. And what I would really like to learn from you is your perspective on which dynamics needs to change, which dynamics do you need to address to make these linear organizations open their eyes and understand the potential of a more market or a more platform-driven model.
Yeah, great points. And we and so many of the folks on the call here, and many of whom are going to be jumping into the conversation here. There are so many luminaries in this space. I'd love to get kind of their experiences in here as well. But we find, to your point, Life, the mindset has to shift before the methodology can take root in a sustainable way. So you have to spend some time with the organizations to help them understand what's changing in the market to drive this shift and why this shift is so critical to their organization. And we have a lot of folks in the call today that are leading that journey for their organizations, and the vision in their efforts is just extraordinary, and we'll hear from them hopefully in the conversation. But the journey all begins with the first step, which is that mindset shift, and that mindset shift has to begin with stories and examples that the business leaders can see their pain in, right? Business leaders worldwide are struggling universally with the pace of change, the volatility of change, the scarcity of talent, the fragility of supply chains. All of these factors are generally universal in industry today. And what we're feeling is this fracturing of old operational models under basically the burden of the pace of the digital economy. And underneath that, there are a lot of factors like the empowerment of talent. Talent has now basically an abundance of options. Talent marketplaces are enabling resources, highly skilled resources, to monetize their capacity, their expertise, and their interest through a very efficient and increasingly growing market. So all of these forces are driving change in the markets today, and really that journey begins with the contextualization of those forces and how they're affecting the future state of the organization that those business leaders are charged to help succeed. And the mindset begins the journey, and then the methodologies and the technologies and the models are frankly increasingly abundant, right? So there are always more technologies and business models and options that are unfolding that can be leveraged and experimented with by business leaders. So it's just a matter of beginning that journey and establishing trust and appetite for trial. So hopefully that helps and kind of resonates with what you're seeing in the markets today. I know we've got a lot of folks with their hands up who have similar journeys and perspectives as well. Maybe we can hear from some of them as well. Wait, I don't know if you have stories to share or questions to share, but John, do you want to?
Sure. Marisol, why don't you go?
Sure, thank you. Thank you very much. I was building over the brilliant introduction by Diane. By the way, thank you for organizing this. I feel it's really, really interesting. I'm connecting from Spain. And thinking about the question behind how to open the eyes of organizations for the platform behavior, I was thinking that about the complexity that lies behind this. So I think it's not a matter only of opening eyes, but creating the capabilities to assimilate and interact in this complexity, because I think one of the characteristics, knowing that collaboration and interaction is as old as humanity, nowadays what we have as the unique element is the speed and complexity of this network of connections that we have. And so how can we articulate and prioritize internally in organizations how and who to collaborate with, and the implications of this change of paradigm? So I think this is not only a matter of business, also about culture, and also about the tools and dynamics and the training to do so, and selecting then your strategy and who to connect with, and how. And I like that in the last Ecosystem 2030 meeting, the one that they chatted here, we talked about the ecosystem orchestration. which for me made a kick, no, in that moment. It's like, yeah, this is now an active role that needs to be really well established, the neutral meeting points where we generate the trust. So these people who don't know how to articulate and how to connect can go there as a buffer to create these connections, no? But there's also, and I see this every day, because now, by the way, I present myself as an ecosystem orchestrator, leveraging and building over that way of thinking that we discussed in that session. But then what I see in my day-to-day life is how people are behaving. So the questions are, what's the belonging sense that then these players are having towards my organization? How are we creating a culture of continuity? How are we creating value? How do I make sure that this value doesn't go away from my organization? And these are important elements to be addressed if we want this to work in the long term.
Thank you. Excellent. Any feedback on that, Diane, or from anybody else?
Yeah, I'll jump in at first, and then I'd love perspectives from the folks in the room, because we've got some real luminaries and difference makers on the call here. But such an important perspective, Marisol, and we've had many conversations about this. But in an ecosystem environment, a very, very different dynamic, as you rightly noted. An ecosystem is basically a center of gravity aligned around shared values, shared purpose, shared vision, shared mission, and that alignment needs to be earned every day, right? And it needs to be based on trust and connectivity, and a very thoughtful articulation and compensation of value. And it's a little bit nuanced, but it's somewhat different from the very structured and efficiency-driven post-industrial revolution models, right? But the ecosystem is fundamentally centered around this alignment of trust and purpose and mission and complementary strengths versus conflicting strengths. And organizations go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I was going to bring in either Rick or Arthur if you wanted to add into the conversation.
So this is Rick. Yeah, this is Rick.
Rick, I was going to let Rick go ahead.
Arthur, go ahead first, because I come from a very different angle. So you might add more on this particular point. Go ahead.
Sure. Yeah. So Marisol made a really great point that I'd want to kind of reinforce, and that is, from my perspective, and I work as a director of strategy for a staffing company, so I'm coming at this from an angle of, open talent definitely competes with us. But our position is that we want to enable it. But Marisol made a really great point, and that is, it's about trust, and it's about how it's not about how you engage the talent, it's about getting the right talent for the job, right? And I think a lot of times, particularly larger organizations, around the legality and the fear of misclassification and the fear of co-employment and all of these fears, they sometimes focus a little too much on how they engage the talent and not getting the right folks for the job. So really love that point, Marisol. Thank you. My question, Diane, for you would be, and maybe this is a little philosophical, but what's the equilibrium between, kind of evangelizing open talent and how far can open talent go before we need to focus on who's training these folks and who's getting these folks to the point where they can work as a knowledge worker, work as a subject matter expert?
I love that question, Arthur. Thank you. If you haven't yet, they're in, I think, the list of references that we're suggesting. There's a great article about the equilibrium that we're seeing, and we're seeing this tremendous shift, as you know, Arthur, your front line on this shift, that we're seeing seismic shift in the talent landscape. And we're moving in a direction of empowerment and mobility of talent, and the ability of talent to create portfolio careers. that necessitates a kind of a revisitation on the enterprise side. The enterprise is rightly at this moment beginning to reevaluate its relationship with talent and the ability to earn the opportunity to engage with the best possible talent for the missions that they have chosen to serve. That said, with that context, historically, the enterprise has offered a fairly regimented package of benefits, including training, upskilling, benefits, et cetera. So if we see talent moving into a more independent status, talent necessarily has to take on some of those functions that historically have been made available in the enterprise setting. So things like benefits, things like training, upskilling, et cetera, agency costs become is somewhat the burden of the talent to the extent that talent chooses a more independent pathway. So that's a shift. It's an adjustment, and there is a clear argument to be made that upskilling becomes an incredibly attractive benefit for enterprise to earn the attention and the engagement of the best possible talent. We're also seeing the marketplaces, the open talent marketplaces, make incredible upskilling and reskilling options available to you. Can talent engaging either in open talent marketplaces or open innovation marketplaces have the ability to upskill and reskill and test those skills in a relatively safe environment. So we're seeing that talent that is operating in the open space tends to continuously reinvest in their upskilling, their reskilling, so they're as market competitive as they possibly can be. So the independent talent tends to be incredibly hungry relative to opportunities to develop skills, prove those skills, test those skills in a way that enhances their competitiveness in this very open landscape. Sorry,
Thank
John?
you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I was thinking, I wanted to go back into another business to find out how people are handling it. And I know we have Jeff Patton with General Motors, I believe, on the line. Jeff, would you mind just sharing where you are in this process? What your take is?
Let me see. Let me fix my mic. 1 second.
There you go. I can hear you pretty well.
You hear me now? Okay, great. Hi, Diane. Great to see you. Yeah, John. I was with GE, and so I can give some specific examples. So I was in lighting division, worked closely with Diane's team. They enabled us to really sort of break the mold of what was happening in a very linear model there. So the lighting division was sort of on the precipice as LED was coming in. Our business model was getting turned upside down. I was leading the IoT initiative to sort of, we were putting through creating a Bluetooth bulb, and this bulbs to sort of change our world and so forth. We had a couple of things working in our favor. We had Beth Comstock, who was the vice chair of the company. She was leading the revolution within GE. Our CEO of lighting division reported directly to Beth. He was a former finance guy. He admittedly didn't get the details of the tech, but he knew we had to change. And so in one case, particularly, we'd launched our new technology. We wanted to get some consumer information. Diane's team got us, got us to accelerate an engagement with corporate, to work with Maker Faire, to solicit some ideas from our consumer base to go into our roadmap. And in about 4 weeks, which is probably 1/10 the time it would normally taken, we got contracts signed with Maker Faire. We got corporate to sign up for some IP initiatives with consumers to give us ideas. On top of that, we went through that very quickly. But then afterwards, Diane's team also got us out to a creativity platform. We wanted to create a new light fixture we'd never done. Diane's team got us out onto one of these open platforms. We found a designer out of New Zealand called Richard Clarkson. And he actually put this design together. It was called Soul. It was a sort of round shaped fixture that we put Alexa in the bottom and we had LEDs on the outside. But all that was breaking the mold with GE because that happened literally in like a week as opposed to months for GE. And I'll also just sort of also speak to this. I worked for Bose after GE. Bose was a hybrid model. Bose liked to be vertically integrated in every space, but you may have heard recently Bose is working in the hearing aid area. They're trying to break the mold. I worked for a startup most recently, which is Silicon Valley scooter company. And there it was a totally different world, right? We would basically bring people on constantly for the smallest, nichiest little projects, from designing sound files and things like that. What we had with the startup was there was no process. So literally I could write a contract in about 15 minutes off of our sort of online template and have someone sign it and they were on board, right? As basically on a PO basis to do work for us. And so we had a combination of the CEO's Rolodex and our CTO's Rolodex of people they knew. And I could just bring on talent as fast as possible. We even had people in Lithuania doing VFX design for us for 1/5 the normal price. And it was cutting edge work, but it was it was fast.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Jeff. Do we have, Rekha, were you going to share something? And Bill, I'm interested in hearing a little bit how this impacts your business.
So if you want to listen to the impact on the business, maybe Bill can go first because I'm going to be bringing a total change. We're going to talk more about tooling and infrastructure, and I'd love to hear back from everybody. So you want Bill to go first?
Bill, are you willing, are you there and able to just share what your take is on what you're hearing and how that's impacting you?
I mean, I'll do the best I can. We're a privately held company here in Houston. And we'll use lots of, Upworks and lots of organizations to find specialists for specific needs. What we tend to lean more on is process-driven software, workflow softwares. But we've been on the cutting edge of that because we sell it. That it would probably be an 1.5 to 2 hour long discussion to some of the problems that we've overcome with it internally, because we do eat our own dog food. But more importantly, some of the business models that we've been able to help. So, I mean, yeah, I could add, but unless there's some specific questions, I think Diane and some of the folks are way ahead of the curve than we are.
Yeah, I'd love to, just before we move on, I'd love to touch upon that. I think that's a really great point, Bill. And Jeff, thank you so much for sharing your story. And working with you was just the pinnacle of that GE experience. It was so fun and made such a huge paradigm shift. But Bill, to your point, as we matured our thinking at GE, and this continues today, as we think about at a macro level where work is going, right? Workers, workforce. We're really we're thinking about a complete inversion of the firm, right? Talent is empowered, talent is mobile. Basically the name of the game is speed and optionality and precision. And really the digital arena, because it's platform enabled, right? Ecosystem. We're thinking, first and foremost, what are all those digital means by which we can execute organizational priorities? First and foremost, and that answer changes constantly because technologies evolve. Then we should be looking at, where in the world are the best and the brightest resources to where human touch is required and human participation is required. We should be agnostic regarding the source of that talent. Find the best possible minds and resources and pull them into the fray. And that flexible layer, that elastic layer to our organization should be quite expansive. And then last, but most importantly, what is that absolute strategic layer of fixed resources that become the, to Marisol's point, and to Bill's point, and Jeff's point, that fixed layer of resources within our organization that are dedicated to our company should be our most strategic, but they should be orchestrators. They should be the visionaries, the market connectors, and the orchestrators, not necessarily the operators. And they don't have to necessarily run all the plays, but they need to call all the plays. So,
Got it. Diane, thank you. That'll have to be the last word. So folks, how was the talk and the discussion today? Please take the 30-second FTE survey dropped in the chat and let us know. What ideas or solutions are you working on that others would benefit from a test drive? Our 2022 call for expert is open. Hey, why don't you just send your referral or your topic to us via email? We'd love to have you on the show. And share FTE with others that you want to network with by forwarding our newsletters, inviting them to our events, and following us on LinkedIn. Just leave us a comment. We are growing and learning. Next up on the show, April 14th, guest expert Ashley Bodewine, CEO of Untapped Social, shares her work on the future of thought leadership. Don't you miss that. Register now on our website, fte.network. Folks, we're out of time. Thank you once again, Diane. Really enjoyed it. And to all of you for making this the smartest 45 minutes of your day. We'll see you guys next time.